Hello YouTube! Today I'd like to speak a little bit about British knife laws, the laws in relation to the United Kingdom, England, Wales, Ireland and Scotland. There appears to be a lot of confusion and anxiety with people from all sectors, hobbyists, sports people, outdoor pursuits people, tradesmen and basically anyone else who uses a knife, regarding the updated definition of a flick knife. Contained within the Offensive Weapons Act 2019, which is currently making its way through Parliament and is due to become law in summer 2019. The good news is the government have confirmed that any folding knife where the blade is deployed manually, usually by hand pressure on a thumb stud, a flipper, the blade itself or any other physical method to deploy the blade remains perfectly legal to buy, own and use in the United Kingdom, with the normal rules applying to public use, with the blade having to be below 3 inches and non-locking. There is also currently an amendment going through the House of Lords where they're trying to make blades less than 3 inches which do lock public to carry in normal situations. This is an amendment, so it hasn't been confirmed yet, so we'll see how that turns out. The Offensive Weapons Act 2019 redefines a flick knife as any knife which has a blade which deploys automatically from the closed position to the fully open position, or from a partially open position to a fully open position. By manual pressure applied to a spring, button or any other device in or attached to the knife, in which sometimes is known as a switchblade or a flick gun. Why are they doing this? There's been a lot of riots and violence in London recently, and this is basically a knock-on effect of that. They're trying to tighten the knives up to show reassure the public that they're doing something. In reality, it's not going to have any effect on violence, because the knife is just an object at the end of the day. The new definition includes basically semi-automatic knives where you have to partially open the blade and then it deploys. I'll now discuss the difference between an automatic knife, a semi-automatic knife, an assisted knife, and a standard manual knife. An automatic knife is a knife where the blade is deployed automatically with the release of mechanical energy, which is usually stored in a spring or other device which is activated by a button or specific action. This is commonly seen in switchblades where the blade shoots out when the button releases the spring which is connected to the blade. Why are these so popular? They're really popular because they make using the knife and storing the knife very easy, especially if you've only got one hand available. Why are they so controversial? Because in the 70s and 80s they were used to commit a lot of crime, so from the outset they were associated with violence and crime, and that's why they've been basically clamped down on over the years. Okay, what is an assisted or semi-automatic knife? An assisted knife is similar to an automatic knife, but instead of a button to deploy the blade, you actually deploy it by partially opening the blade, and then the spring comes into life and does the action. Normally you only have to open the blade about 10% for the action to trigger. Why are people using semi-automatic knives? Simply because they're legal, whereas an automatic knife isn't. Pretty much they are an automatic knife, but with a very small difference in how you activate the mechanism. Right, let's speak a little bit about manual knives. Manual knives are legal and will continue to be legal in Britain. Technology has evolved. Manual knives can now be deployed efficiently, effectively and quickly as an automatic knife, using clever and innovative design. there are three main types of opening methods for manual knives. You've got the nail nick, thumb stud and flipper. This is the nail nick. This happens to be the SOG terminus. As you can see, it's what you'd expect to see. This is a slip joint knife, the nail nick to open it. It's not particularly difficult to open, but it isn't exactly fast and does require two hands. You'll find the nail nick on older generation and cheaper knives. This is Spyderco's version of the nail nick. With this design, you can obviously open it in one hand. Moving on to thumb studs. This is a CRKT Gordon Heavy. As you can see, it's just a stud on the blade itself, and you just use leverage to deploy the blade. Again, perfectly legal. You can actually do it with one hand rather than two, but it's still fairly slow. Moving on to thumb flippers. This is a typical flipper. It's got a tab on the top of the, which is actually the bottom of the blade, but it's on the top of the knife, and you just press it and it'll flip open. Now it's really fast, but that is not illegal. There's absolutely no assistance, there is no spring. As you can see, there's no assistance whatsoever. It is literally held in with a magnet, and you have to build up pressure to overcome the hold of the magnet, and then once it overcomes, it just pushes itself out. You don't have to flip it out, you can just press it a little bit and then use your thumb to click it out further. Here's another iteration. This is a CRKT Rakari, I think it's called. Again, it's a flipper design, but because it's got a heavier blade on it, it's harder to actually flip open, so you have to use your wrist. Again, it's a full manual, there is no assistance whatsoever. As you can see, there's no springs, nothing, it's totally manual. And this is a good, it didn't flip on. This is a good one to demonstrate how it's manual, because this one actually has got field strip technology. So I can strip the knife down and actually show you that there is zero that is basically what the knife is made of. There's no springs, no assistance. The knife goes into the frame like that. You put pressure on there and the momentum takes it through, and then it locks using that, and you push that in, it comes down. No springs, extremely simple, and a brilliant design. Absolutely superb knife. With the field strip technology, allows you to really easily clean the knife. Right. Okay, I'd like to speak a little bit about automatic versus assisted versus manual, and why you don't really need an automatic or an assisted knife. First of all, the cost. Automatics and semi-automatics tend to be more expensive. There's more in the mechanism, they're more complicated, they're more difficult to manufacture, and also harder to design. Legalities. Automatic is pretty much illegal most places, 90% of countries, especially Europe. Semi-automatic is legal in most places, but currently it's legal in the UK, but after the Offensive Weapons Act comes into force, it will be illegal. So for that reason, manual wins again. Maintenance. Again, maintenance is worse for automatic or semi-automatics. They're simply more to clean, more to go wrong. Springs wear out, things get clogged up. Over time they will wear and tear. Manual again. Manual is extremely simple. There's just simply nothing to go wrong. Shelf life, again, automatic, semi-automatics will not be as good as a manual. Reliability, the mechanism is 100% down to you. When you're deploying the blade via manual method, it's all up to you. So there's no assistance, it's simple, nice and easy, and once you get used to using the knife, there's no problems. Aesthetics, you could probably say automatics are more aesthetically pleasing, simply because they don't have to have a thumb stud, they don't have to have a nail nick, so the knife can look better. Obviously these are requirements if the knife is manual, because you need to open the blade. Strength, again I would say manual is a better option. And that's it for me. In the rest of the video I'm going to show you the discussion from the House of Lords, the committee stage, where they actually talk about, the government talks about the definition of a flick knife. They clarify what it is and what it isn't. It's basically everything we've just gone through. In the description of the video you'll see links to the knife law, links to the Parliament website and the amendments. If you liked the video or found it useful, please give it a like, subscribe, and thanks. Ta-ra.
In Clause 21, Amendment 61, Lord Lucas.
I beg to move Amendment 61 and speak at the same time to Amendment 62. The Amendment 61 is intended to remove, or to make it clear, that certain knives do not fall under the prohibition which is in Clause 21. There are a number of occupations and trades where it is very important to be able to have a knife that can be opened with one hand. This is often a safety critical feature if you're a climber, a fisherman, meaning a at-sea fisherman, various other trades that involve the use of ropes, or a parachutist. You need to be able to cut without, and at the same time use your other hand to hold on to something. And generally the way that that is achieved is to have a small button looking something like a wart on the blade, which you can push with your thumb using the pressure of your thumb to open it. Sometimes the alternative is a large opening in the blade. And I just want to make sure that the government is clear that those sort of knives are not intended to be caught by this clause. Because, coming on to the history behind Amendment 62, when Clause 139 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988 was promulgated, which allowed folding knives with blades shorter than 3.5 inches, it was widely assumed that that would allow blades that locked, because nobody who's going to use a knife wants a blade that doesn't lock. A folding knife with a blade that doesn't lock is a toy. You can use it to sharpen a pencil and nothing much else safely. If you've any use for it in hobbies or in business, you need a blade which will lock open. Now, the locking requirement was introduced as a result of case law. If the government wishes to maintain that, what I would like my noble friend to do is make it absolutely clear that good reason is understood to be really quite wide, that a tradesman will generally have among their tools a knife whose blade locks, because that is all that it is safe to use. Therefore, you can expect to find it in and about their vehicle when their vehicle is in a public place, or when they are moving between, or might be going to, places where they will need to employ their knife. At present, people who use knives in these ways tell me that the police are understanding. But if we are getting to the point where we are being much harder on the carrying of knives. I would like to be sure that it really is understood that a locking knife is an essential tool of the trade, and that people who have a trade or a hobby that requires it will often have it in their possession, and that the police take an understanding attitude to that at a time of heightened tension. I beg to move.
Propose page 21, line 27, after knife, insert the words as printed.
My noble friend and I have given notice that we oppose clause 21 standing part of the bill, and our concern was in fact that expressed by the noble Lord Lucas about how people who need to be able to open a knife with one hand because their other hand is otherwise engaged in the same operation, as it were, and also needs disabled people who may only have the use of one hand, how those are to be dealt with, because it seems to me that what he has described, a button or spring or other device, that is exactly the sort of knife that would fall within this clause, and I do see a problem there, and I'm glad that he's identified it more specifically than we have. I couldn't quite see the way to deal with that, so I took the rather wider approach of opposing the clause standing part, but I think it is something we've got to pin down in a way that satisfies everyone, not just by the police being understanding.
Well, should I just briefly add to this discussion and draw it to the committee's attention that very often this type of knife is contained within a multi-tool type product for which there are numerous applications. One is a motorist, a hobbyist, a farmer, all sorts of other people very regularly carry these, and they often have small blades, and they're often, because of the multiplicity of functions within that product, are accessed by a knob, a protuberance of metal. And I think it would be regrettable if these products were caught by accident, as it were, within this clause. Well, also, may I just ask the leave of the committee to ask the Minister a question to which I'd be very happy for her to reply to me in writing, but it really refers to something that we have just recently passed. But if an individual were to shoplift, were to steal a knife from a shop, would they also be considered to be guilty of being in possession of that knife, of carrying a knife? If not, I suggest that could be something that regulation might look at, and that someone should be penalised even more harshly, or the law should consider it a more harsh offence than stealing something of the equivalent value of a Mars bar or some other food item. But my Lord's, it's a technical point.
Well, may I thank my noble friend for outlining the intention of his amendment very clearly. And if I could just say from the outset, it's not, turning to Amendment 61, it's not the intention of Clause 21 to prohibit knives that can be opened manually. The types of knives that are covered by the legislation are those that can be opened automatically, either from the closed position to the fully open position, or from a partially open position to the fully open position. So the legislation makes no reference to knives that can be opened manually, and therefore those knives that can be opened with one hand using pressure from a thumb on a small protuberance, usually known as a thumb stud, don't fall under the legislation. Turning to Amendment 62, this aims to exempt folding knives which may be locked into position when fully extended, provided that the blade is less than 3 inches long. In responding to this amendment, it might assist the committee if I briefly outline the current legislation regarding possession of bladed articles. Section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act of 1988 makes it a criminal offence to carry a knife in a public place, except for folding pocket knives, if the cutting edge of the blade does not exceed 3 inches. Section 1394 and 5 of the 1988 Act provides a good reason or lawful authority defence for persons to have the article with them in a public place. And in addition, and without prejudice to the generality of this defence, there are specific defences where the bladed article is for use at work or in a person's possession for religious reasons or as part of national costume. Therefore, if a person needs to carry a folding lock knife or owing to the nature of the activity to be undertaken, for example, to participate in outdoor activities such as fishing, they may avail themselves of one of the defences provided for in the legislation. My Lords, it is unarguable that knife crime has regrettably been on the increase for a number of years. I'm not persuaded that it would be in the public interest to relax the current legislation along the lines proposed in this amendment. A folding knife that can be locked open, if used with criminal intent, can cause as much damage as a knife with a fixed blade. Those who carry folding knives with a lockable blade for good reason, including any specific defences provided for in the legislation, may continue to do so. The noble lady, Lady Hamway, asked about people who have only one functioning hand or work situations where someone needs to be able to open a knife with one hand. We're aware of situations where it's necessary to open a knife with only one hand. For instance, someone who is up a ladder will need to be able to open a knife easily without having to use two hands. This is why knives that can be manually opened with one hand are not banned. These include knives which can be opened with a thumb stud, which is one of the most common designs. Similarly, knives, the mechanism that opens slightly the blade but not completely, and then can only be fully opened by hand, won't fall within the definition. My noble friend Lord Goshen asked about shoplifting. If someone steals a knife, are they caught? If they're, well, first of all, if they're under the age of 18, yes, most definitely, they are caught by the offence. If whether they're over or under the age of 18, they could be done for shoplifting in addition. So I hope that answers his point, and I would ask the noble lady to withdraw her amendment.
I'm very grateful to my noble friend.
Could I just intervene there? I've been referring to the noble lady. I actually meant my noble friend.
My Lord, I am very grateful to whoever I may be receiving that answer, which was certainly in respect of Amendment 61 all of the comfort that I could have asked for. Like the noble Baroness Lady Hamway, I have the greatest difficulty in understanding how a person with one hand can open a modern milk bottle. There are greater tests than opening a pocket knife. But it is, I understand what my noble friend says about folding knives that can be locked open, but one very much relies on the police to take a sensible attitude to the prevalence of these, necessary prevalence of these items with people who actually use knives for a purpose. I beg leave to withdraw the amendment.
Your Lordship's pleasure that the amendment be withdrawn. It is by leave withdrawn. Question is that clause 21 is some part of the bill. This man knows that opinion will say content. Contrary not content, the contents have it. After clause 21, amendment 62, Lord Lucas. Not moved. In clause 22, amendment 63,